Hi, Eric. Today we're talking about liquidity pools. That's something quite new because in the centralized world, liquidity pools don't exist.
Yeah.
Maybe just tell us a bit about liquidity pools. What is it and what for?
Liquidity pool is a portfolio of two assets where one asset is priced in terms of the other. So the pricing mechanism varies. The most common is called constant product. The constant product algorithm, what it does is it looks like an asymptote. So as the supply of one of the assets in the portfolio diminishes, the other one increases, right? So as something becomes scarce, it rises in value, and that's in essence what it is.
Why is it needed in the decentralized world?
It's not really needed. It solves a number of problems, and it also presents some interesting opportunities, right? It's new behavior. Like traditional finance has never seen anything like this. The liquidity pools were invented to solve the liquidity problem. And what that means is that when you go to traditional markets and you have something that you want to sell, you have to find a buyer. But that is really the point of having exchanges, is they bring together buyers and sellers. So you'd presume that there's a buyer, but it's not a complete picture. It's a buyer at the price at which you're asking, right? So if you have a car, right, and you want to sell it for $10 million, well, that would have to be a pretty special car. And then maybe you would find a buyer, right? But most likely not. If you lower the price down to $1 million, you might find a few buyers. And if you lower the price to $10,000, you'll find a ton of buyers, right? So the existence of a buyer is a function of the ask, the bid and the ask. In the crypto world, since we have now the ability to manufacture scarcity at will, then everybody goes and manufactures a brand new token with 1,000,000 coins, and that's all great. It's supposedly valuable because it's scarce, but it's only valuable if you can find a buyer for it, right? So most tokens in the crypto world have a liquidity problem. Yeah, there's no one there interested in buying this token. So, but it doesn't mean to say that the token is worth less. It doesn't mean that it isn't valuable. It just means that no one has yet recognized its value, right? So some of that is marketing, and some of that is the mechanics required to bring financial participants into a single place. And so the liquidity pool was born in order to solve the liquidity problem. When I create a liquidity pool, I put two assets in it, and that pool is the participant at the other side of every transaction. So when I want to sell something, I don't have to find a buyer now. The buyer is right there. The pool is the buyer, right? Then the only question is at what price, right? And if I'm asking too much, well, I don't get to ask. The liquidity pool isn't a guy that can say, yes, I will meet your price. The liquidity pool offers me at a certain price the asset that I'm seeking, and I will agree to that or not. So I then am in the position to walk away or to do the trade, right? If I really want to do the trade, well, there's a liquidity pool, and that's the price. It's authoritative, and you can do it or not, right? So that's that. What's interesting about it is that it may not be the price that you want, but the liquidity is there, and you can always do the trade. That's the problem that liquidity pools solve.
Why is there a liquidity pool in the WoW ecosystem and the Last network?
So we in WoW, we have the primary participants are really the merchants. So the merchants buy WoW in order to stake it and then generate V dollars. And eventually those V dollars come back to the merchant, and the merchant may want to burn them or sell them for something else, like physical cash, right? They may want to buy Bitcoin with it, or they may want to buy USDC or some tethered token, which they can then convert into bank dollars. And so liquidity pools are the favored mechanism for VOW to facilitate these transactions. When someone wants to buy VOW, they can go to a liquidity pool between USDC and VOW and buy the VOW, right? And the USDC is, or other stablecoins, right? Any stablecoin will do. The mechanism there is you take banked money, you wire it to the issuer of the stablecoin, and they send you back as many tokens as you sent them dollars or whatever the unit is. And now you are onboarded onto the crypto world. Now that you have these tokens, you can go play with liquidity pools, because you can't play with liquidity pools with banked money, right? That's dumb money that's isolated in the bank. So you have this sort of two-step, you have a conversion process. And now that you've got these tokens, you can go buy VOW in a liquidity pool, right? So the liquidity pool, in a way, is the... so in markets, one of the functions of markets is what they call price discovery. I want to, I'm going to be making... I'm going to be, raising potatoes this year, right? Do I want to be raising potatoes or growing, I don't know what, farming potatoes, or do I want to be farming soybeans, right? And the answer is, it depends on the price. Well, what's the price? Well, we look to the markets for that, because before there were sort of global markets, it was a question of, well, who are my traditional customers, right? My customers are this food stand over there and that supermarket over there and so on and so forth. So I have to go and talk to them and say, look, what are you paying for potatoes these days, right? And they go, well, we pay this much. And then you have to go to the next guy, and you realize that the two guys don't talk to each other and they have wildly different prices. And so you go, well, I can sell a bunch to this guy at this higher price, right? So the creation of markets helps the producers to go to a single place where they can get a consensus on the price. The problem with traditional markets is that they can be gamed. There are all kinds of participants who have an interest in creating fake images or to project the incorrect prices so that they can then take the other position and make a fortune, right? Make a windfall on fooling everyone into thinking something. So the traditional markets are deeply corrupt. Liquidity pools cannot be corrupted because they are machines. They don't care. They don't play games, right? Their only game is, you want to buy something or you want to sell something. And it's the same. To the liquidity pool, a buy is the same as a sell. It's the buy of one asset is the sale of the other asset, right? And that's the only function that they provide. And as a function of the trades, of the volume of trades in the liquidity pool, it sets the price, right? So there are no backdoor deals. There are no special situations. There is no lobbying and all of this sort of, cashback arrangements and all of this sort of price fixing, right? Like, for example, the gold market has been price fixed since forever, right? The London Bullion Market Association meets twice a day, one in the morning, one time in the afternoon, and behind closed doors they set the price of gold. Well, that doesn't exist in the crypto world. We have a natural market. We have a truly free market, right? And therefore, if you are creating a new ecosystem, a new financial ecosystem like VOW is doing, the very first thing you want to do is to have integrity. And liquidity pools guarantee that.
So you already mentioned a couple of reasons why someone or I should invest into a liquidity pool. but some institutions or companies promise like 1,000% a year or whatever in things like that, you know. And so how do I know, as an investor, as a new investor, how do I divide these questionable offers to real offers, like I think the Wow ecosystem does it? How is it, and how do we in the Wow ecosystem and the TLN do these things?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. The first thing to say to any investor is your money is your responsibility. You are going to make money or you're going to lose money at your own hand. So how do you make the decisions? And the answer is always the same: knowledge. You have to understand what you're doing, right? You can't just give your money to someone and hope that they don't run off with it, or that they don't skim off the top, or that they make good decisions, right? No, you have to own this. It's your money. So so you go and you make your own decisions, and the decisions are made on the basis of fact. What do you know about the thing, right? So there's a million scams out there on the internet and on in the crypto sphere, where they promise these incredible returns, and they get you by telling you, look, just put in $20 and you'll see how it works, right? And you put in $20, and sure enough, you double your money in 2 days, and you go, oh my God, that's incredible, right? So then you put $100 and it happens again. Then you put $10,000 and then you're scammed, right? Because they just get you with this, like putting $20 into a system doesn't prove anything, right? What matters is, do you understand what you're putting the $20 into, right? And if it's a black box, if you ask the people who are promoting this, how does it work? And they tell you something really vague, like, oh, we do some amount of quantitative trading, and we do arbitrage, and we do a little bit of mining, and okay, that sounds completely scammy, right? Don't okay, fine, you arbitrage what are you arbitraging? Show me, right? Oh no, that's done by the trading desk, they don't talk about it, it's proprietary information. Okay, so in other words, it's a black box. You can't, as an investor, run the other way, right? So in terms of Wow, we're having this conversation because it is our intention, as you know, as sort of promoters of this new financial ecosystem, to be as transparent as possible and to educate people, right? The reason people get scammed all the time is because they're just not educated. They don't understand the basics of things like investing, right? If you're going to drive a car, you have to be educated. You know, oh, there's like pedals and levers and dials and things, right? You can't just get into a car and drive it. You have to learn how. And it's the same with investment. So now let me step back and talk about the fact that there are all these, all these places that, or these parties that offer these incredible yields, right? Oh, you can double your money every two days or something. So let me just say that the capacity to make money from money, it's called yield. You put your money into somewhere and it makes more money for you. That doesn't just come out of nowhere, right? It doesn't just materialize out of thin air. It is really the result of work. So someone's going to do some work, and they're going to get paid for it, right? Because otherwise they don't do it. The work in the case of the investor is the investment. By lending your capital to someone, that capital is useful to someone, then because it's useful, they're willing to pay for it, and that's your yield. So if you say to me, you can get a return of 10,000%, in 1 year, you have to say, okay, so someone's going to take my money, and is my money that valuable to them that they're willing to return to me 10,000%? Because if they could actually do that, then why wouldn't they return it to themselves, right? I mean, that's just a lot of money to just give away for no reason, and nobody gives away money for no reason. So when we look at the VOW liquidity pools and we ask where the yield comes from, the answer is the yield in the VOW liquidity pools comes from the same place where the yield comes from for all the pools, because all the pools basically work the same. A pool is a pool of capital, and that capital is useful to someone who wants to make a trade. Every time they make a trade, they pay for it, and that fee gets collected by the liquidity pool. But because the pool is not a company that has a mouth to feed, it has no self-interest, right? Then all it does is it collects the fees and pays them to the liquidity providers of the pool, to the investors. That's where the liquidity, that's where the yield comes from. And if the pool is a very popular pool, if there are millions of people doing billions of transactions, then there are billions of fees, and that pool can generate a tremendous amount of yield. If that pool doesn't see a single transaction in a month, there is zero yield. So this is where it's important for people who are becoming liquidity providers in the TLN network to understand is that VOW will have a very active marketplace. It already has an active marketplace, but in this year, it's going to do multiples and multiples. I don't know the size, right? Maybe we could do 10x, 100x, 1000x, who knows? As all of these retailers come online and they start staking and they start issuing $, and then they need to touch the liquidity pools, it'll be monthly, right? Every month, every retailer is going to be doing something, coming in or out, and then that's going to generate a ton of yield. But until that happens, the yield is not particularly great, right? So where does the 4% come from? For a limited time, because we know that there is this maturation process for the ecosystem as the ecosystem comes alive, because we want to have liquidity available for the early participants, we are willing to subsidize the yield, right? So in other words, the yield, the 4% at least in the VOW pools that they're generating is not really coming from work. There is some amount of work. There's some transactions on those pools, but not enough really to make it probably worthwhile. So to incentivize the early participation, we are then paying 4%, which really comes from burning VOW. Right, so we have a ton of VOW that is reserved for special purposes that have to do with fostering the ecosystems through its development cycle, and part of that is for marketing, and part of that is for special partnerships, and part of that is for subsidies or incentives like this one. Right, that's where your 4% comes from.
So the people get 4% per month. That means 48% per year. And what is the security about it? Do they for sure get their money back? Are there risks? Because I heard about risk about codes and impermanent loss and other things happening in the liquidity pools. So what's the security we can offer to the people?
So security comes in two forms. Let's just say the physical layer and the value layer. When you put your money in a bank, no, let's stand back. When you take a bunch of cash and you put it under the mattress, it could be you go to work and your maid finds it and runs off with it. So that's a physical security layer, right? There's that does not improve substantially with banks, even though that was the idea, is that I don't want to keep the money under the mattress. I'll give it to a bank because the bank is safe. But it turns out that the bank goes out of business and takes all my money, right? So now we have insurance. Oh, now we have to have insurance for a bank that was supposed to be safe, right? And so then you say, oh, but we have insurance. But now you have to look at the security of the insurance. If enough banks go under, is the insurance pool large enough to cover all of them, right? And the answer is no. I mean, the FDIC in the United States, for example, has 5% capitalization. So that's tiny. It means that if 6% of the banks in the US go under, it already can't meet its obligations. Mm-hmm. So there's a layer of physical security in liquidity pools that is as secure as you could ever imagine. Once you put your tokens into the liquidity pool, they are locked away in the liquidity pool, and they will never go anywhere because there's cryptographic security that that makes it nearly impossible, right? Like I think we talked about this in another video. It is theoretically possible to break the security, the encryption mechanisms in Bitcoin and Ethereum and these systems, right? But it would take roughly the lifetime of the planet to break a single transaction. Right? It would take 4.5 billion years at current computing capacity of the planet to do it. So, in other words, it's the safest money ever built. Then there is the value layer. I now know that my tokens are never going to disappear and I can have them back anytime that I want. Great. But what are they going to be worth, right? And in the case of a liquidity pool, you take some VOW and you take some V dollars and you put them into the liquidity pool. They're no longer yours. They belong to the liquidity pool. The liquidity pool hands you back a liquidity pool token, right? And these LP tokens are in your wallet, so they're very secure, right? They're as secure as the money that is in the pool. But the question is, what are they worth? And the answer is they are worth what you put into the pool. If VOW is $1 a token right now, and I take 5,000 VOW and 5,000 V dollars, so in essence, I'm putting $10,000 into the pool, I'll get, let's say a token that is worth $10,000. And that token is going to be worth $10,000 tomorrow and the day after and the day after, no matter what happens, right? So the pool, in a way, is the safest investment ever built. Because in most investments, when you put in your money, you say, let's say that you buy a company, you buy Apple, right? And so you buy, let's say that Apple shares are $1 a piece, and you put in $100, so you got 100 shares. Okay, I got 100 shares of Apple now. But tomorrow, Apple is trading at 50 cents. I still got 100 shares, but they're worth $50. I just lost half my investment, right? Wow, that's scary. So now we get back into the knowledge game. What did I invest in? Apple. What is Apple, right? Oh, they make phones. And what things do I want to know about Apple? Well, they make phones in China. What happens if China shuts down and Apple can't make phones? Well, they lose value, right? I need to understand a whole lot of stuff in order to buy Apple, right? No investor really ever understands has the degree of knowledge necessary to invest in a company like Apple. It's incredibly complex. But they invest anyway because that's the way it is. It's done on incomplete information, and you take your chances and you set up mechanisms where if Apple starts to fall in value, you get out and all of this kind of stuff. They call that risk management, which is really a great misnomer. It's just the best risk management is understanding, right? And with a liquidity pool, you don't have to understand anything. You put in $10,000, you have $10,000 no matter what happens. Now, dollars may depreciate across time, right? But that's a different conversation. So, okay, so now I have an investment mechanism where I can safely put my money and it will never change, lose value. So we can't call it properly an investment vehicle. It's really a savings vehicle, right? Because the idea of savings is like in a savings account, I put my money there, I have my money. It's not going anywhere, right? But it isn't an investment because an investment has to have yield. And the liquidity pool provides yield via the transaction, right? As transactions occur, then I started with my one LP token, but now I have 1.2 and 1.4 and 1.5, right? And so now it truly is an investment, and it is the safest investment that's ever been invented, really. It's got zero downside.
So if I've put, let's say, 5,000 VOW and 5,000 V dollar into that pool, and now you come and you want to buy some of these VOW and put in some V dollar, because that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
How are these pools always balanced? How is that happening?
They're not. I mean, so balance isn't really a very meaningful term. Let's just say that there is a relationship between price and the composition of the portfolio. So if you have 5,000 V dollars and 5,000 VOW in the pool, then as far as the pool is concerned, VOW is priced at $1, at a V dollar, right? Now, in the real markets, VOW may be priced differently outside of the pool, right? So if VOW is now trading at $2 in the real world, then what happens is it creates an arbitrage opportunity, because what I do is I go and I buy the VOW from the pool at $1, and I sell it into the market at $2 and make myself $1, right? But here's the thing. As I buy VOW from the pool, because VOW is becoming more scarce inside of the pool, the price rises. So the more that people buy, the higher the price rises until it levels up with the external markets, right? And so this process is called arbitrage, where you buy from one place and sell in the other place to make the profit. And arbitrages always arrive to zero. They rebalance the pool, right? Because people will sell it until there is no opportunity left, at which point the prices are the same. And so I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it answers the question. There's still a bit of a question inside of my head, because I think the VOW token it will rise a lot more than the V dollar in rates.
Absolutely.
And so maybe you can say something in addition to what you already told us about this. I called it balance, but how is that working? If one token goes up to the sky and the other one remains kind of the same because it's a V dollar, it can't get a lot higher than $1, for example. That's not impossible.
Yeah, exactly. So you're doing a fixed supply token which is variable in price against a stablecoin, which means to say it makes the relationship very clear, right? If you had two assets that both vary in price, then the price in the pool would be harder to compute, because you have to look at two different prices in the real market. But if it's against a stable coin, then you look at the price in the pool at any point in time, and you know exactly what it is. So VOW can and will rise in incredible magnitudes in the coming years. And what that means is that as it rises for real, like, physical economy demand characteristics, right? Because people are actually buying and staking it and using it in a commercial fashion, and as they do so, the price rises. Then the liquidity pools have to stay up to par, right? It means to say that that as long as they are out of balance, as you say, there's an arbitrage opportunity. Someone will come and level them up. But the implication for that is that there will be far fewer VOW in the pool and many more V dollars, right? Because in order for that to happen, so let's just say that the price rises to $2 a token. So that means that now you have to have twice as many V dollars as VOW in the pool. So you started at 5,000 and 5,000, and then you're going to go to, I don't know what the right thing is. I guess it's about 2/3 of 10,000. Yes. You have to have 3,300 VOW tokens and 6,600 V dollars in the pool to reflect that $2 price, right?
Exactly.
So it means that as a liquidity provider, as an investor into the liquidity pool, which we call a liquidity provider, you have effectively sold 1/3 of the VOW that was in the pool, right? So your value remains constant. You still have exactly $10,000, and you still get the income from the transactions, the yield, but you are missing out on the spectacular rise in value of VOW, and this is what is known as impermanent loss. If I look at two investments, one where I take my VOW and I put it into the liquidity pool, and one where I take my VOW and I just hold on to it, as VOW rises in value across time, you will see that VOW that your first position will be substantially higher than your second one, right? In other words, the liquidity pool is going to rise in value, but not as fast as VOW. And the reason for that is that there's no free lunch in the world. You can have a better return, but it comes at higher risk. Yeah. Since the liquidity pool is immunizing you from risk, it's saying, you're never going to lose your money. Then it also cannot give you the kinds of returns that VOW does, right? Because with VOW, you're taking risk. If you buy your position, your $10,000 into VOW, and VOW falls in half in price, you're like, oh my God, I've lost half my net worth, right? If you put it into the liquidity pool, you don't. You're perfectly safe, right? Mm-hmm. But on the other side, you don't have the incredible upside that VOW has. So investors investing in the VOW ecosystem really need to understand these two positions that they can take, and decide, make decisions about their portfolio. How much of their money is really hard earned, that they want to, that capital preservation is really important to them, right? In that case, you can put it into the liquidity pool. But maybe you take 25% of your total net worth and you say, this I can afford to lose, right? This I can risk and look for the big gains. So and maybe that's 15%. It kind of depends, the way that financial advisors do it is they do it by age. When you're young, you can afford to lose everything because you have many years and you'll work and you'll make it again. But if you're 67 years old, then you're all capital preservation. You really don't want to be playing with risk, right? And that's a decision that, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not giving anyone advice on their specific investments, right? I can't, because I don't know who they are and their particular characteristics. But I am trying to at least transmit the kind of knowledge that people need in order to make these decisions, right? So that they can make these decisions by themselves.
That's why we make these interviews to get this knowledge spread into the world, because I never heard about liquidity pools before I started thinking about the Lost Network and VOW ecosystem and talking to you. So I think that's really, really important message, because for most of the people out there, there's no idea in their mind that they could believe that there's no risk in giving their money anywhere. That's really a total new idea in this world.
But it is, but it isn't, right? Because people can put their money into a checking account and it's risk-free. Well, it's got counterparty risk. It's got the risk of the bank, right? Yeah. But the money is not invested in anything. It doesn't fluctuate in value, so it is risk-free. This is really the same thing, except it's far more secure than a bank. And it's like, and it is actually an investment, but it has a bottom line, right? Like you can't lose your investment. Mm-hmm. At any point in time, you can take your LP tokens, send them back to the pool, and get exactly back what you put in. The composition of that will be different, right? You might have put in 5,000 VOW and 5,000 V dollars, and when you exit the position, you might end up with 1,000 VOW and 8,000 V dollars or something like that, right? So the composition will be different, but the total value is constant. It'll be the same. So it means you don't lose anything.
So the money is staked for 367 days, and then you get the amount of money you stake, you get back, but there's no security about how many tokens of VOW or V dollars are still in. That depends on the price.
Yeah, you're guaranteed the value that you put in, right? In nominal terms, in the terms of your particular currency. And you are guaranteed the yield that the pool generates in that time. And the 4% you get because you staked the pool tokens, therefore guaranteeing that the liquidity will be available for that period of time. So we pay you for that.
Yeah. What happens after the promotion? Because these 4% are a kind of promotion.
Yeah, it's a good question. And if we timed it right, what happens is that the pools will become very busy and start throwing enormous amounts of yield. And then we don't have to subsidize it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's it. Or is there any other information important about the liquidity pools you would like to share?
So we've been talking about liquidity pools in the abstract. In fact, there are, in the real world, there are concrete specific pools, right? There is a pool of VOW to V dollars, but there's also a pool of V dollars to V pounds or V euro, and a pool of V euro to V pounds. And there's V rands and V ringgits and V rubles and V, and as VOW moves across jurisdictions, they will create more of the V currencies. And therefore, there's a combinatorial issue of the number of liquidity pools. And these pools are going to be very useful to merchants because merchants buy product from other countries. So if I'm buying Italian products, for example, here in the United States, my customers are walking in the door with V dollars, and I take those V dollars, and now rather than selling them in the V dollar for USDC liquidity pool, where I want to really bank it, right, because I can burn the USDC to a bank account. Rather than doing that, I go to the V dollar to V euro liquidity pool, and I get V euros, and I send them to my provider in Italy, right? So that, if you think about the Forex markets, the foreign exchange markets, those are measured in the trillions of dollars of transactions per day, right? I mean, if VOW is able to capture a basis point, 1% of 1%, the demand on VOW will be just, I can't even project how much VOW that's going to demand, right? And the yield that those particular pools will generate. Now, maybe there's a ton of trade between the United States and Italy, therefore the V dollar to V euro pool is going to generate a ton of traffic, but maybe there is not so much traffic between, let's say, the United States and South Africa, right? So maybe that pool will generate less yield because there are fewer transactions, right? So the liquidity pools are going to reflect the real economy, the actual sort of flows of funds across the world as people do business, right? And then there are going to be pools that are set up against, and I believe that there already are, between, let's say, VOW and Ethereum, and VOW and Bitcoin, and wrapped Bitcoin, and VOW and other tokens. And so we look forward in this coming year to creating pools between basically every token out there that exists and V dollars, right? Especially with VOW Taxi, because VOW Taxi is going to allow the world or the users to take their V dollars from Ethereum and move them over to Cosmos or to EOS or to Polkadot or to Avalanche or all of these different blockchains. And in those blockchains, we can set up liquidity pools between $V and basically all of the tokens on that blockchain, right? So there are hundreds or thousands of tokens in each blockchain and people actively trading them. And now they'll be able to trade them for $V in a liquidity pool. And when they want, they can take their $V and leave that blockchain and go to some other blockchain to do whatever it is that they want there, right? And so this is all going to produce a tremendous amount of yield as everyone's moving everything across blockchains and across liquidity pools, etc., right? And that's so the thing is going to be, from the perspective of the typical TLN investor, right? This is all entirely too complex. How are they going to know which liquidity pool they're going to, to invest in, right? They might be invested in the rand to pound liquidity pool, but meanwhile the rand to ringgit is actually generating a ton of yield, and they didn't know because they had to stay on top of it, right? And they're busy people who have lives otherwise and don't have the time to stay on top of things. So the way in which the VOW pools are set up, the architecture that Bish conceived of, is one that allows VOW to be able to move the liquidity across pools, therefore relieving the TLN investor from the responsibility of seeking yield, right? If there is a ton of traffic over there, you just hold on to your liquidity pool token and you don't know where the liquidity is. We will move it wherever it needs to be and wherever it can earn the most yield.
Mm-hmm. And the money can go away because the system is kind of closed. There's only money going out when there's money of the same amount of money is coming in.
Yeah, I mean, as a liquidity provider, you can always burn your LP tokens and essentially withdraw the money from the network, right? But it remains a closed network, right? It's closed to the participants.
Good. Maybe a short summary of everything we said, because that was a quite long video, and maybe in just a couple of sentences about the liquidity pools. What are the most important points?
So the most important point is to understand that liquidity pools represent the safest investment ever created. The second point to understand is that safety is a counterpoint to opportunity. The safer that you are, the less opportunity you have to make money. So investors want to make money, and they have to therefore measure how much risk they want to take depending on how big their appetite is. And the third point is that VOW is working really hard to make it easy for the investor, and obviously to roll out the system, which is going to is really the pivotal point here, right? As we get a ton of merchants on board, we will see a ton of economic activity that produces a ton of yield, and then we become really differentiated from everything else out there.
Thank you, Erick. That was really interesting and exciting. I'm certain a lot of people are hungry to get all this knowledge we share now. Thank you.
I hope so. I hope that people actually watch the videos, and I hope that they take the time to understand, because understanding is the key in life, really, not just in this field, right? You need to understand how to protect yourself from what governments are doing and what other people are doing, right? And VOW is protection.
Yes, and it's a total new way of thinking for many people because we're so used to certain patterns that happen in the more normal money system, and it's a new way of thinking. That's why it needs curiosity, it needs some information, and it needs it again and again because it needs a certain time to believe things, to get them into your head or mind or into your knowledge. Because when you heard it once, it's not really in it. So
that's the one thing I'm going to like. So my message for those of you in the audience listening: do not give your money to anyone unless you understand what you're doing. Yes. That's it. Understand first and foremost. And if you understand, you may not make the investment, right? Even if it looks good and you think you understand every part of it, if you don't feel comfortable, don't make the investment.
Yes, I paid a lot of money because I did not think about these things you said now. So
right.
Thank you, Erick.
Okay, great to talk as always.